you mentioned Aaron Rodgers and Connor Hughes. He doesn't seem to be on the same page with offensive play caller Chow Dining. As we just mentioned before, the team used all of its first half timeouts in the first quarter. I was sitting right next to you watching the game, and we were like, wait, what is going on? This is uncharacteristic for a quarterback known for controlling the game. What is causing his hesitancy this season?
Jeane, he doesn't look good. Like, I go back to when the Jets acquired
Aaron. Is this the injuries?
Jeane, I think it's a lot. I think it's everything. I mean, when the Jets acquired Aaron Rodgers, I remember talking to, this was everyone, and everyone was talking about, when Joe Douglas was talking about this and Robert Saleh was talking about this, they all stressed, like, we realize we're not necessarily getting a 31, 32-year-old Aaron Rodgers. We know that he's maybe not a 2 or 3 or 4 best quarterback in the entire NFL, but even 70 or 65 or 80% of Aaron Rodgers is still good enough to get us into the postseason and have us make a run. We can put the pieces around him like he didn't necessarily have in Green Bay that would be able to take them to the top. So the Jets did know already getting into this, they weren't getting all-pro, all-world Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they thought they were going to get flashes of it, but they knew he was an older player. The problem right now, Jeane, is just he looks, I mean, from a playing standpoint, he looks older. Like, he looks very much like a 41-year-old quarterback. And I do genuinely believe that these injuries that the Jets are trying to brush off, and Rodgers himself is trying to brush off, that's one of the reasons why he has no mobility. He's dealing with 2 knee injuries, a low ankle sprain, and now a hurt hamstring. Like, that absolutely takes your toll. But the one thing that I go back to with Aaron, and I think it's what's so frustrating to me and difficult for me to comprehend, is when the Packers made the decision to move on from Mike McCarthy. What they did was they went out and hired Matt LaFleur. And Matt and Aaron had a conversation before he was hired, but he wasn't necessarily the head coach that Aaron wanted. What the Packers did was they brought in a head coach who was going to challenge Aaron, probably challenge him for the first time since he was a rookie or really just getting started. They were going to make him a little uncomfortable. Matt LaFleur was going to do things that he believed was going to be successful. He was going to be the coach. Rodgers was going to be the quarterback. The first 2 years they were together, they went 13-3 each year, and Rodgers was an MVP both seasons. I know it wasn't the scheme that Aaron Rodgers wanted to work, where it was the creativity and the motions and trying to deceive the defense, but it was working. And it was probably going to work in year 3 as well if it wasn't for the fact that Rodgers hurt his thumb in London against the Giants. Then just wasn't really the same. Packers fell behind. They didn't make the playoffs. Still had a win-in opportunity, though, against the upstart Lions towards the end of that year. So what I just can't fathom for me is, like, I get wanting to be comfortable. I get wanting to do what you wanted to do. And maybe if those first 2 years with LaFleur, they went 7-9 or 8-8, and it just wasn't a playoff season, and it was like, okay, yeah, this just doesn't work with Rodgers. But it did. Then he comes to the Jets, and what he does is he just gets everything that he wants. He gets the players that he wants. He gets the hand-picked coach that he wants. He has a GM and a head coach that are basically just saying, yeah, sure, Aaron, whatever you want to do. He gets the scheme that he believes works. And I remember he told us this, Jeane, where it was like, we don't need the creativity. The defense can know what we're going to do. We're just going to out-execute you. But then he goes out onto the field, and you see this offense that just lacks creativity despite having the playmakers, lacks the potential, lacks game-breaking potential. Plus, then you have a quarterback that looks significantly older, and what you have is just a broken scheme. And it's not all on Rodgers in any way, shape, or form. It's not all on him, but it's just a colossal, fundamental fracturing of everything that is wrong right now. And it just stems back to just, you can't, this is not the NBA. You can't have player-run teams to this extent. You want to have player-run locker rooms, absolutely, but not teams. You still need coaches. And Rodgers had the coach that challenged him in Green Bay, and you saw the results be so incredible. And then he came here where it's so many yes men, and it's just like, it's just failing. It is failing at an epic, epic magnitude. Because honestly, when I look at the roster, and Connor can probably test this too, I don't see weaknesses. Safety, maybe somewhat of the offensive line, but it's still a functional group. That's a functional line, really good playmakers, a good tight end, 2 backs, a good defense, and it's still not working. Why? Why is it not working? It's because coaching matters. And I think the problem with that is it still stems back to Rodgers because these are the guys he wanted.
Rodgers, what's your thought on why Aaron just doesn't seem himself?
I think to me, Jeane, it starts with number one, the best he's looked was that Thursday night football game against New England where he started to break out of the pocket, extend plays, make plays with his legs. And they had some huge conversions on plays where he rolled out. And New England lost contained because they didn't expect that from him. And it kind of looked like, okay, week 3, he didn't play in the preseason. Week 3, he got his legs back under him. Then he had really injuries pile up from that moment on, whether it's ankle, hamstring, on and on it goes. These little things pile up. he can't move back there, and he has no interest in moving back there. So when he gets to the line of scrimmage and he wants to see everything in front of him, what the defense is doing, what coverage they're running, the pressure look, if they're rotating their safeties, how his offensive line is set up and how the protection is set up, something he said in the press conference after the game yesterday, then everything has to be perfect. And that's not on Aaron Rodgers. That's on everybody on offense. That means if an offensive lineman misses their block or doesn't hold their block for 3 to 5 seconds, Rodgers can't move or readjust the pocket or break out of the pocket. That's not a way to live in the NFL. Look at all the great teams in the NFL right now. Those guys can create, whether it's Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Jaden Daniels right now for Washington, even guys that are mid-tier quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts at times. And, I know Stroud doesn't really run a lot, but he's a guy that can move in and out of the pocket. So for me right now, they are not creative on offense. He doesn't want to be creative on offense. They're static is what I like to call it. When they come out and line up, everything that you see is kind of what you get. But that means there's no room for failure at all. That means if your initial first or second read isn't there and Rodgers isn't going to move, he's either going to throw the ball away, he's going to take a sack, or the play's dead. That's it. And that's a way you can't live in the modern NFL. There's no successful team that is living like that right now. The most successful team that has a quarterback that doesn't move and make plays with his legs is Jared Goff. And two things with Jared Goff. Yeah. One, he doesn't miss. Two, he plays in Ben Johnson's offense that has more going on around it, eye candy, trick plays, motion, than feels like most teams in the league. And that's not the Jets at all. So that's the way they've built this thing, and it's blown up in their face.
They built it because that's how the quarterback wanted it.
Right.
Yeah, and they mortgaged the house for it, and let's see what happens. All right.
Well, let me say this. Sorry, not to be long on this. This is the hand you are dealt when your initial plan fails. Joe Douglas missed on trying to fix things around Sam Darnold, which was kind of a half-hearted effort. We all knew that. Missed on the Zach Wilson pick. And then that when you miss on top 5 quarterbacks, you have to pull the emergency lever. That means you're dealing with someone's damaged goods. Aaron Rodgers is a future Hall of Famer. Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old now with multiple injuries. They had to pull that lever, which had a high ceiling. It also had a really, really low floor, and it bottomed out on them.
The alternative line of thinking was trade the pick and build around Sam. And they did. Again, trade the pick, try to run it back with Sam with a colossal amount of draft capital. Maybe it works. If it doesn't, you grow in with the quarterback the next year.
Hey, hindsight is 20/20, right, when it comes to the NFL.
Well, they talked about that in the draft room, but yeah.